Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. I have here a very special guest. Please welcome Frank Lee Benton. Frank, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm making it. I'm making it.
Yeah.
So you and I have actually been on a same podcast. Mr. Ian Bick. So shout out to Locked In with Ian Bick. I seen your story on there. Thought it was pretty interesting. Kind of coincides with some events that happened in my life. So I reached out to you on Instagram, and here we are. So you've got
Yeah.
a pretty interesting story about how basically a certain incident, certain night, kind of changed the path of your life and to where you are now. So
Yeah.
I want to say started out bad, could have went really worse, and now you've kind of full circled it back into redemption, which is kind of what we like to highlight here on Crime and Entertainment. So first
Awesome.
off, glad you could make it. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for sharing me on your platform.
Absolutely. So just tell us a little bit about who Frank Benton is, a little bit about early life, kind of set the tone for our audience that doesn't really know you.
So Frank Benton, growing up, I was the second oldest child, the first boy. My mom had six kids, raised eight. Um, Grew up in Philadelphia, bad section of Philadelphia, Kensington. When I was a little older, preteen years, my mom moved us outside of Kensington into like the next neighborhood over, which was bad, but not as bad. Um, so I didn't have a father in my life. He was absent. Left when I was young. Couple stepdads, I guess you can say. At that point, it was I turned into the quote unquote man of the house. So
Right.
I territory type thing, and it's my family, and just being very standoffish and didn't want to listen and obey any rules. Um, as I grew up, we started, dabbling into the wrong things in middle school, cutting school, getting in fights. Like I said, no structure, no father figure. So my mom did the best she could, but with eight kids, she can't give every one of them her attention.
Right.
We didn't have the best of things. Obviously, my mom was a waitress, and couldn't provide everything that we wanted, but we got the stuff we needed. So I, turned to the street life, which most do in my community, to get the things that I wanted and needed.
Mhm.
So, I go into my teenage years, and petty stuff, selling weed, still getting into fights, starting to take the dealing and hustling a little more serious. And in my head, I used to justify it because I used to, do the right things with the money. I
Right.
helped out my little brothers and sisters. I gave my mom money when she needed it. Um, and that turned into like, once you portray yourself as like in the street life as like you want to make a name for yourself. So you don't want to get picked on. You don't want to have people look down on you. You don't want to have people take advantage of you. So you kind of have to have this like shield up of who you are to protect yourself, right?
Right.
So that comes with violence. Um, it comes with ego, like a lot of ego, a lot of pride. Um, have females, being with different females, never settling down, which caught me into the altercation that ended up getting me locked up ultimately,
Mhm.
which was over a female. The dude had said that he was still with her and I was dating her, and they jumped me at a bar one time, and then it was just going back and forth, fighting when we seen each other. Then I'm still living this street life. I ended up getting shot. Not by this gentleman. This was a deal that went bad. Um, I was there with my brother. Ended up getting shot. Luckily, I made it to the hospital. So I get to the hospital. They were able to save me. I had a colostomy bag. You think like that was when I was 22 years old now, 21, 22. So I'm a little bit older. You think I would learn my lesson by then. And
So
it would
let's
just,
elaborate a little bit on that.
yeah.
Like, how did the shooting go down?
um, the shooting went down. My brother said, and he dealt with this person before. So I went with him. We get there and the guy goes in the abandoned house, doesn't come out. My brother ends up, knocking on the door. No one comes out. Some guy, never seen him before in my life, just runs out and so yeah, he got the money. So I chase after him. And he said, "You keep following me." He's like jogging. "You keep following me, I'm gonna shoot you," which I didn't believe. I didn't see a gun. And then as I'm chasing him, he ends up pulling out, and I get shot one time in my hip.
Mm.
Hmm.
You needed a colostomy bag as a result of that.
Yeah, colostomy bag, and I have nerve damage in my leg because when I hit my hip, it hit main artery in my left leg too.
Mhm.
So one bullet did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So in the hospital for like 3 weeks.
Wow. Did they catch the guy who did it?
They did end up catching him on a separate incident. They actually raped a girl in that same house, and
Jeez.
the guy got locked up for murder and rape. So
What
it's
specific
a
area
separate
in
incident.
Philly? What specific area is this?
This is like Kensington area.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, so like, did this deter? And this happened before the incident that you wound up going to jail for, right?
Yeah, probably 2 years before.
Okay. So when this happened, like, does this change your outlook on, where this life could lead? Where does it kind of sit with you? Because like, I always say when I've talked to people, and I've talked to a bunch of different people with a bunch of different backgrounds, from law enforcement to mob guys, drug smugglers, all across the board. I
Yeah.
say either like something like that, like a near death experience, or going to jail is usually what changes people. Getting shot like that, although it necessarily wasn't like a head wound or anything like that, you did have nerve damage. It could have went bad. Did it change your outlook on this life and where you were going, the direction we're heading?
Honestly, no. It was like a fight or flight risk mentality. Like if
Yeah.
I'm gonna indulge in this now, I gotta, indulge in it more. Rather than, it's either you're gonna be all in or out. Um, it did calm me down for the most part of people I was interacting with and how freely I was around people, but it didn't stop me from doing the things that I was doing to lead me into that situation now.
Now, on the flip side of that, did it, was it like you got shot and lived? Was that a little bit of boost to the, I guess, street cred, if you want to call it that?
Yeah. It's nothing to be proud of now, but at the time
Right.
it's like, you didn't kill me, I'm still here.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's, like you said, it's not something, I guess, looking back after the fact, you can say you're proud of, but I mean, you look at how many people played off that. 50 Cent obviously getting shot 9 times, and that was a lot of the parts in his song of how they did that, and they didn't succeed. And there's even I don't know if you ever watched the Sopranos television show at all, but in the last season, I think it's the last season or it's close to the end, there's this rapper that's trying to make a name for himself. So he actually pays one of the guys to shoot him, but obviously not kill him. Like, and I think he winds up shooting
Mhm,
him in the ass. But it was like, he's like, if I get shot and I make it, then that'll put my name in the street and it'll help the album sale.
mhm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously not that you're a rapper, but that same kind of tone really goes into,
The lifestyle. It's a
yeah,
lifestyle. It's
yeah,
so I wasn't a rapper, but like I wanted to do the things rappers were doing,
right.
going to clubs, showing off, spending money, buying, things that I didn't need to make it look like I had money. Females, it was like, yeah, it was with the whole lifestyle that came with it. So it basically like not that I'm proud of it now, but at the time I probably would have been proud of like, yeah, I got shot and I lived. Like
Yeah. What kind of money were you making doing what you're doing?
it's crazy because at the time it felt like a lot of money. It's a couple $1,000 a week. It wasn't nothing like at the time people working regular jobs, it was more than them.
Yeah.
But to like anyone getting some serious business money like I am now, it was nothing.
Right. And I heard you say, I think it was in your podcast, there was a situation, I'm not sure what time frame this was, but you got hit by a car?
Yeah, that was when I was hit by a car twice. It's funny.
What?
Just running the street. Yeah, so
Hopefully not the same car.
no. The first time I got hit by a car, I was 8 years old or 10, and that resulted in like a half a body cast from like my torso down.
Mhm.
I broke a femur bone, and then I think it was like early teen years, maybe preteen. I got hit by a car again, and I broke my tibia and fibula, and I had to get a metal plate in my leg.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got a little payout from that as well. I think you said what, like 20 grand or so.
Yeah, and at the time, it's like 18 years old, you're getting 20 grand, you're thinking it's a million.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that added to the persona that, I wanted to portray to help me, get deeper in the game or buy things to show that I had money.
Did any part of you, and I know you had kind of alluded to the fact you have spent some money, gave some away to, the family for different things, but like,
Mhm.
did you ever think like this was your chance to go in and do like a major buy and flip that, or were you just kind of just spending it at will? Because
My whole mindset, so when I came into the money, it was like 14. Well, when I knew I was going to get it, I was like 14 years old. And that was like the longest 4 years of my life to get to 18 to finally get it. And I had all these plans. I'm going to buy a store and own a corner store. I'm going to buy and sell cars. I had all these plans, but, I just bought things that I didn't need basically.
yeah,
And, the rest I invested it into the streets.
right. Yeah, it's amazing how when you look back when you're young like that at that age, what you either thought was cool or thought you needed or was doing. Like I think back now, like I was into racing, street racing, um, with a Mustang, and I think of all the money that I dropped into that car that stayed in the shop more than was ever on the street, and that I could actually drive it. Like I probably could have been driving a fucking Mercedes Benz, but just like I wanted that race car, that whole, aura and everything that came with it. So I'm sure that was probably the same way with you and the street life. You wanted everything to come with that. Um,
Right.
so how did this event come up, which landed you in prison?
Um, so I had like a simple assault on my record already. I had a DUI on my record. I took a deal for the simple assault and I was on probation. The DUI, I did a weekend in jail. So I had other cases that beat. So I'm on parole now, like a year or two on parole, and then I run into the same guy that I got in a fight with originally that jumped me in over the female.
Mhm.
So I'm out with a couple of friends of mine, and I end up running into him at a bar. Walking up the steps, he's walking down. We lock eyes, and he just starts swinging. I dip it. He falls down the steps. This is like to my best recognition too. I was really, really drunk that night. We were out partying all night. This was like our fourth stop, and I just remember thinking, like, last time they got over on me, they had more people. I got some buddies with me now. Like, it's not going to be the same outcome. We go outside. The bouncers kick everyone out. We go outside, and me and the guy square up. And I just remember, throwing fists, and somehow I stumbled upon a knife. I didn't bring a knife out with me that night. I would carry something else before a knife, but I had a knife, and I used it on the guy, and I'm walking away. Everyone's. I just did that. I need to get away now, right? I'm
Right.
before I get caught. I see one of my friends fighting another guy, and I used it on him too. And I grabbed one of my buddies that was like on the ground. I picked him up and said, "We gotta get out of here."
Mm.
Uh, we leave. I'm hearing people talk about it the next day, and I'm like, all right, well, I need to get out of the city. I moved to didn't move. I went to my sister's house. She lived in Jersey, South Jersey, for a couple days. I ended up going to traffic court in Jersey for a ticket, and they let me go. So I'm like, if I was wanted, they wouldn't just let me go. If it was like, this big thing everyone was making it out to be like. So after that, it's funny because after that, I'm like, if I'm really wanted, they'll keep me here. They let me go. I got on a payment plan and left. So I went home. The same day I came home, they came knocking on the door and taking me down for questioning, which they didn't question me. They just locked me up and charged me with attempted murder of one person, aggravated assault of another person with possession instrument of a crime, and everything else that comes with it: simple assault, reckless endanger of another person.
Okay, so they didn't actually question you. They was just straight to lock up.
Yeah, didn't talk to a detective. They didn't get my side of the story. They just locked me up and charged me with them charges: attempted murder, aggravated assault, with a bail of 250,000.
Jeez, 250,000. That's crazy how bails or was that or a bond or that
It
was your
was a
bond.
bond.
Yeah, that's crazy how they come. Well, I guess I mean you did have prior charges. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why it was a little bit higher than normal.
Mhm.
Um, so did you have a lawyer this time? I mean, did you try to lawyer up? What was the next step?
Yeah. I had a little bit of money, nothing for a lawyer, but I had a great support system with friends and family to help me out. So I was trying to make bail so I could fight it I didn't have to sit and fight the case because in Philadelphia County, there it's so overpopulated. And the jails are so backed up, and the court system's so back up. The jails are so overpopulated. They're letting people go home, so they need to get people out of there. And you're getting court dates for like 3 to 6 months. So if this is going to be the prosecutors are getting their information together, gathering their evidence, I'd rather be fighting it from the streets, at least on house arrest.
Yeah,
I got granted house arrest and they dropped my bail down, and I had a detainer for the prior that I was on probation for, which the judge never lifted my detainer, said that I'm a risk to the community, so had to continue to fight my case in jail. I was in there for 2 years in the county fighting the case.
but they did let you out or no?
No, so they did not let me out. I was fighting it until I got found guilty. I did get a lawyer. They were trying to offer me 20 years. He
Dang.
said, yeah, he said, let's take it to trial. Let the judge hear the case, and I think even if you lose heads up with the judge, you're not going to get as much time as they're trying to offer you. So I use this judge, use this lawyer for my prior case. I had a lot of trust in him, so I went head up with the judge and fought the case.
What was your mindset of doing that? Because like, was that a plea bargain they were offering you for the 20 years?
Yeah, yep. And
Yeah,
if you lose, if they're going to give you more than a plea, because like
right.
that's the deal.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, usually, if they come to you with a plea, it's at least somewhat slightly less than what you
Mhm.
could get if you lost. So, a lot of people have to look at that, even if they don't want a plea bargain. They do have to take it into account because if you do fight and you lose, then you're looking at doing sometimes substantially more than whatever they offered. So it had to be, at least something that was considered. Um, what was your mindset like when you decided to go to trial? Like, was it nerve wracking? Were you just like at that point, it is what it is. I'll deal with whatever happens. Where were you at?
So going to trial, I had 2 years in on the county.
Right.
At that point, I'm talking to my lawyer like I'll take a 5 to 10,
Yeah.
like I'll take a deal right now. And he said no, I think we should still go to trial. These guys aren't showing up to court. It keeps getting postponed. It keeps getting pushed back. It might be a must be tried. You might go home,
Yeah.
or if you do lose, you'll get the 5 to 10 anyway. If anything, maybe a little bit more, but you're not going to get to 20. So I'm like, I take his word for it. But it was nerve wracking. It was, I don't know when I'm coming home. I don't know the outcome. I don't know how much more time I have to do. I lost my little brother when I was in there. He passed away. My other brother was messed up on drugs really bad. So it's like my life was falling apart outside, and then inside I didn't know what was going on. But the county was bad. You just like sitting there. Basically, you can read books and listen to the radio, but you really can't. There ain't no. I mean, I don't know if you know. There ain't no programs. There ain't no self help stuff. There isn't no schooling. So it's just like you and your thoughts. And I was just praying and preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best.
Right. I mean, I didn't do a ton of time in county, but from people that I've talked with, a lot of people say like if they know they're going to have to go to prison, they want to hurry up and get there because prison's a little bit, at least a little bit more organized and more stuff to do. They hated being in county.
Yeah, the county's like locked down. Food's trash.
Yeah.
People they don't care about going to the hole. It's they ain't there for long. Most
Right.
people so.
Yeah. The food was
Upstate in prison, it's like it's home now,
right.
unfortunately. But to some, it's like they're going to be there for the rest of their life, or they're going to be there for a long time. They don't want to ruin their bid. And people are like, there's more to lose up there than in the county.
Right. So you take it to trial, and what's the outcome?
So I take it to trial. I lost in trial. Get back in 2 months for sentencing. So I lost to the aggravated assault charges. the judge heard my case out and dropped the attempted murder, just found me guilty of the aggravated assault. So
Well, that's
that
a
was a big,
yeah.
yeah, that's a huge one. Probably cut like 10 years off of my sentence. So in the back of my head, I don't know what's going to go on though, right? I'm waiting 2 months to get sentenced. I seen the kid, so I'm in the county for 2 years. When I first got in the county, I seen the kid that had one stabbing, and he ended up. They offered him a 3 to 10, and he didn't take it, and he went head up with the judge. I seen him when I was coming back from losing my case, and he's like, "Yeah, I lost. I just got sentenced." He said, "I went head up with the judge." I said, "What did you get?" He said, "Man, they gave me 10 to 20." Mind you, he had 2 years in on a 3 to 10 that he could have took. But I said, damn, they gave him 10 to 20 for one aggravated assault. I wonder what they're going to give me for two. So now, you're thinking like the worst, but you're, like I said, hoping for the best. I'm just now I'm prepared to do some time. So we go back for sentencing. I took accountability. I apologized to my family, the judge, the community. Um, she let me just, say what I had to say, and basically seeing if I was like how I was going to handle that before she sentenced me.
Right.
My family, I had family and friend support, probably like 20 to 30 people in the courtroom. And the judge had mentioned that before she sentenced me, like, you took accountability and responsibility for your crime. You have a support system here. Then she started reading off my charges and the time form. So aggravated assault, I got the highest amount of time I got was 4.5 to 9. So she's reading off all my charges: aggravated assault, possession of instrument of crime, simple assault, reckless endanger of the person. And then she gives me the numbers, 2 to 4, 1 to 2. And she said all of it's going to be running concurrent.
Right. Which is
So
good.
that was one case.
Yeah.
Then I go to the other case. The other case, same thing. Reading off all my charges, and then she mentions the case numbers, case number, this and that, case number. She said both of these dockets are going to be ran concurrent also. So I got 4.5 to 9 for everything, which, it was a big relief for me,
Right.
because I'm thinking in my head, I was being realistic. I'm not getting a 2 to 4. My lawyer was trying to give me a 2 to 4 when she's like, "What do you recommend?" And the DA tried to give me a 10 to 20. So in my head, I'm thinking 7.5 to 15. That's a win. I got 4.5 to 9. So I go to my process. I go, pack up, go to my processing jail. And a week later, they take me back down to the county for my back time. Then I got a 1 to 2 consecutive after my 4.5 to 9. So altogether, 5.5 to 11.
So, well, I
Some
mean, just to,
serious crimes.
and to break that down for people that, may not be, hip to what these mean, is when you're doing them concurrent, you're basically all those times are together. So you're serving that all at the same
The,
time.
the clock's ticking for all of them. Yep.
Right. If it's consecutively, then you would have had to do that, then serve that over again for the other one. So, not that I want anybody to wind up in this type of situation or anything close to it, but if you do wind up in this, you're wanting to go concurrent if at all possible. Because if not, you're going to be serving basically double whatever, they may give you or whatever the other charge is. Was that a relief to you?
Oh yeah, it was a big relief. Because I already did over 2 years in the county. So before I got the additional year, I was up there, and I got to do 2 more years upstate, a little over
Yeah, I
two
was
more
about to
years
say,
upstate.
you're already
So
over
no,
halfway there.
yeah, I'm already over halfway there. And I could start planning on my return, basically. Working on the time. I utilize it as time to work on myself
Mm.
and try to make the time count, and not count the time.
What prison did you go to?
I was at SCI Forest, which is one of the maximum security prisons in the state of Pennsylvania.
What's
One
that?
of.
Well, obviously you said you had other charges before, but this is the first time you'd ever been to a prison.
Yeah, all my charges before I never did jail time for, besides the weekend for the DUI.
I mean, obviously you're used to counting. You've been in there 2 years. I'm sure you've seen some things, but prison is a different ball game. What was your, mindset going into prison? I mean, were you just like trying to focus on get the time done? Did you still have any of the gang mentality left in you, or where were you at mentally?
Um, I clocked out at that point. I made the decision when I got sentenced, I wrote my mom a letter, and me and my mom kind of fell off when I was in prison. But I wrote her and my stepdad a letter because I ended up building a relationship with my stepdad while I was away. And I said I'm going to utilize this time to work on myself and make it worth every bit of every single day that I'm here. So my whole mindset going up there was, if it's positive and productive, I want to be involved in it. I
Mm.
don't want to, gamble. I'm not getting whatever you want in jail is there. You want the violence, you want the drugs, you want the gambling, you want the drama, the gangs, whatever you want is still there. I made it a point, and even when I came home recently, I want to be involved in everything positive, everything productive, whether that's Bible study just to get off the block, whether it's a GED, whether it's credit classes, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's signing up for school. So I utilized every single resource they had there.
Okay. Did you get any pushback from any of the people in there of not wanting to fall in with anything they were doing? Like, I think that's the biggest, like, questions that people have is like, if you go in there with the mindset that you just said what you wanted to do, stay out of the way, try to better yourself. Is anybody going to stand in your way of doing that?
Um, you're gonna have there's gonna be like-minded people there, so you're gonna like gravitate towards the people that has the same mindset as you.
Mhm.
But there's also going to be people who are like even out here that are going to try you, that are going to he's a square or he's trying to go home.
Right.
We're going to see like, but you know, eh, the real ones like you go into prison. I got friends I still talk to that got life in prison that got 20 years, 30 years, and you. So just because they have that much time and just because they did a crime doesn't mean that they're a bad person. And
Oh, absolutely.
I built relationships with these people. And it's like you grow up at some point, right? You mature. So yeah, the knuckleheads and the kids and the immature individuals, it's going to show. And they want to fight with a guard. They want to bump you when you're walking just to see where you're gonna like. But then you got older people and more mature people that are just trying to do their time, or if they're done with the bullshit. They had enough. So that's what I did. I just gravitated towards people like that.
What age were you when you were in there?
I came home when I was 31, so 26 to 31 I was away.
What's like some
25.
of the worst things you've seen while you were in prison?
um I've seen COs get stabbed. Seen inmates get stabbed. That's probably pretty like locks and socks. CERT team stomping people out, pepper spray. I seen my celly trip off a K2 and talk suicide stuff and punch a CO. Like, yeah, for the most part, it's pretty calm, but you got your moments where you're running the shit. People can't they can't just shake that mindset, and they want to be involved in bullshit. So
Right.
it's gonna be all around. It wasn't really like how you see on like A&E or these like upstate. And more in the county, yeah, they're wild. But upstate, it was like people trying to do their time and go home, or people trying to do their time and try to go home, or go in a little library and get home.
Right. Um, what about you? You mentioned like gambling earlier. I've always heard like that's one of the quickest ways when people get into prison that they can get in trouble with gambling, especially when they don't have the money to pay or to pay up or the means to pay up. Like what type of gambling is that? Is this, cards, sports, dominoes? What are they gambling on?
Oh, they gamble on sports, cards, um, dominoes, like you said, basketball games. Uh, yeah, they have like a whole. It look like a casino with some of them tables. Like they're
Yeah.
playing blackjack over here, they're playing poker over here, and
And they have what money or just like, you know, commissary?
the currency will probably be commissary. I mean, at a certain point, you're just having people outside send money to their people.
Right.
Like you got like the petty gamblers that are like bringing soups and bags of chips to the table, ice cream tickets, and then you got people that are like sending $50, $100 JPays or money orders or cash apps to people.
What about cell phones? Like, do you have cell phones in there?
I didn't have a cell phone. I seen them, but I didn't have a cell phone. Like I said, that's an escape charge. I'm
Really?
trying to go out. Yeah, if you have it's yeah, it's like a 1 to 2 sentence. They'll charge you with an escape charge. Yeah. So I never had one, never wanted one, honestly. My like I said, my thing was like, why would I do anything to jeopardize my freedom?
Right.
So, but I go see parole. I go and see parole, and it's like, dude, you can't even follow directions in here.
Yeah. It's crazy how many phones are in there, though. I had a guy that I didn't even realize he was locked up. I was talking to him on Facebook, Messenger not too long ago, and I knew he had done a long stint. He got mixed up with bath salts and all that stuff years ago, and I knew he had done like 10 years. But then he had got out. Everybody was happy to see him come home. Then it was like 6 months later, I was just messaging him on Facebook, randomly talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't wait till I get out." And I'm like, "Out?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm locked up again." I'm like, "I thought you got out." And he's like, "No, I got locked up again for something else." He's like, "I get out in like 3 years." I'm like, "So you're just talking to me right now in jail?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got a phone." And I was asking him, I was like, "How much did you pay for the phone?" He said he paid like 2 grand for the phone.
Yeah,
Like everything in there is like basically quadruple what it is on the street.
minimum quadruple. 10 times sometimes. Remember in the county, a nick of weed, $5 nick of weed was $50.
Whoa. So I can see like the big market of why you see it a lot on TV shows of why people on the street want control of the drug market in jail if it's that much of a markup.
Yeah, and you could probably see why officers and they call them horses
Right.
engage in bringing it in. They're making one little trip quadruple their payroll.
Yeah, yeah. You're talking probably, once or twice, 2 or 3 times a month is probably making just as much as they are in their paycheck. So that
Probably more.
temptation is yeah, that temptation is definitely there. And now what we have like drones that drop a lot of shit off too. Or at least that's some of the stuff I've been reading. Was that a thing when you were in there? I don't know how long ago this was.
No, I don't ever think that it ever happened where I was at. We were in like a maximum security, like I said. There's we're in the forest. It's the name of the jail is SCI Forest, and it's literally in the forest. So it's from where I was at. It was like a 6 to 7 hour drive. I'm sure people probably definitely tried it. I know I heard stories that they used to Graterford, the old Graterford prison is close to Philly, and they used to put it in tennis balls and throw it over the big wall. Yeah.
What are some of the positive things you accomplished while you were in there?
Ooh, this is my conversation. Um, bad stuff there. There's a lot of negative things to indulge in. I gambled on some sports here and there. The Final Four, a Super Bowl block pool. Never like got addicted to it, but keep it interesting.
Right.
Don't gamble at all now at home because I got too much. I don't want to get caught up in spending my money. I like my money too much. I work hard for it in here out here. Um, but in there, so positive stuff. So I started like I got my GED. I got an OSHA. I got Flagger Forces. I got Money Sense class, Money Smart class. I got a Masonary certification. I was a tutor in an education building. Um, I created a workshop for the inmates called The Power of Positive Thinking. Um, what else? I had the highest GED scores in the jail. Um, so I probably came home with like 15, 20 certificates.
Wow. That's good.
Mhm.
Well, you said Mason, was that something that you were thinking about doing?
So before I worked before when I was on the streets. I just never worked on the books, and I just worked when I wanted to. But I did masonry, and I did some home remodeling stuff. The masonry started. I was like, when I go home, at least I'll have like this to fall back on.
Right. All right. You and I'm assuming when you do these things in there, you do get time shaved off, which to me is a bonus because
No,
oh no, you don't really.
no, you can't come home. You can't. So what it can do is it increases your chances when you see parole for your minimum date, but you can't come
Okay.
home before your minimum date
Oh, okay.
in Pennsylvania.
All right. But okay, so even if you don't get time off though, I'm assuming if
You're
you fill your time with everything that you just listed, it does in a sense give you kind of like a job while you're in there. You keep yourself busy with that to keep it from, getting involved with all the other shit that's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so you get out when?
I got out in September of 2019.
When it got closer for the time you get out, was it still like, ready to get out? Was there any part of you that was nervous? Believe it or not, I've talked to some people. Now their stints were a little longer than yours, but they had actually become so accustomed to prison life, they were scared of going back to society.
I was scared. I didn't want to come home. It
Why?
sounds crazy, right?
No, not
I
really.
was
But,
I was accustomed to living the way I was living, and I'm in there without these temptations or these desires or anything that anything that was like in arm's reach. You know, it was like a test. I didn't know if I was ready for the test or not
but
because
you had all
I
that stuff in there, but you avoided it.
yeah, but I felt like I did that because it was at my fingertips of easy to go to a program in here. It was I didn't have anything else to do.
Okay.
So it was like that was my distraction in there. Now, when you come out here, you have way more different pleasures and distractions that you can chase after.
Right.
And there, yeah, you do, but do you want to go home more? You know what I mean? So you don't really follow down that path. You stay on the positivity path.
I
So it
got
was like I didn't have faith in myself at that time. Like I knew I became a different person. I knew I worked on myself. I knew like I read real estate books, I read self-help books, I read business books. I became mentally this person and I just wasn't felt like I was quite ready. But I talked to a good friend of mine. He sent me up a lot of books and he was like, well, what if a year from now you don't feel the same way? Like you might not ever feel like you're ready, but you got to come home and just start making the right decisions.
you. Mhm. Now, when you come out, I mean, do you continue like education? Like, what is your motivation once you hit the streets? And do you have
So
a support system once you're out?
So I come home. I'm living in my sister's basement. Home in 2019. She had a bed in her basement. It was my only home plan. I had other people I could have stayed with, but I wanted to stay with my family. And even though it was in their basement, I was around my nieces and nephews. I missed out on time in their life. So yeah, I had friends and family that hey, you need this, hey, you need that. But my whole thing was I need to start working. I need to get a job, and I need to start bringing in some funds before I go the only other route I know.
Alright. And how did you do that?
Uh, so I started working like I was on Craigslist, I was on Facebook making posts, and anyone need a worker, labor market stuff like that. I ended up working for a painting company, and I wasn't making too much money, but I was learning a lot. I'm like, while I'm at this company, I'm going to pay my bills, I'm going to save money, and I'm going to learn a lot. And I picked up a second job delivering food after work and on the weekends. So I had two jobs, and my goal was to save one paycheck and then live off the other. So save up all of the money from the painting job, use the delivery job to pay my bills, pay my rent, get food, get gas, and get the things I needed, and not compromise one bit on saving that money. I would pick up extra hours if I needed extra money.
Did you run into any issues with like, being a felon?
No, no, not really. In Philly, there's like a lot of labor jobs in the trades, and they're just looking for bodies. They're looking for guys, and they don't, do background checks. And so I never, luckily, had that issue with, me being a felon. Obviously, like when I went to rent, I didn't have proof of income because I was working under the table, and I didn't have pay stubs. I didn't have good credit yet. I didn't have that much money saved up yet. So, and I had the record too, the film. So they run all that stuff and like, nah, we ain't written to you.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing is like, the trades. My dad hung sheetrock for years when I was growing up, so I would help him from time to time. Like all of his workers were guys that had records. So I learned early on, like just because, like you said, just because you had records, like these guys were good guys. They just, made mistakes and at some point in time. And it's sad that the society will block them nowadays, but I am seeing, at least around here, I live in South Carolina, and I'll get Indeed messages sent to me, and at the bottom of it, it'll say, "We encourage people to apply with a criminal history." And I
Yeah.
really like that. Like, I like that, they're not automatically denying it, because usually at the bottom when you get there, they'll say, applicants subject to a background check, which anybody that has a felony is like, they're thinking, well, they're not going to take me. They either don't bother putting it in or don't even try to go to the next one. But when you see applicants with a criminal history, we encourage you to supply. That gives you hope, but in the trades, like you said, you don't really have that very much. I was a welder for years, and I can probably tell you more people that I worked with that didn't have a criminal record than almost everybody did. It was like, it was part of your welding resume almost that you did. But you didn't get any pushback from that?
No. My boss, when I told him, I didn't tell him right away, but because it was like under the table job. And when I told him, he was like, I feel like he tried to set me up one time and put like $20 somewhere to see if I would steal. And I'm like, yo, is this your $20 out there? He's like, oh, I didn't. I was like, yeah, he was trying to see if I was going to steal $20 off of him.
And then the painting company, is that what you said it was?
Yeah. Yep.
Now you actually go on to open up one of them yourself, right?
Yeah. So, I saved all of that money for the whole year I was home. So now I have a couple tens of thousands of dollars saved up. And I was like, I was going to get into real estate. That was the goal. I was, so the pandemic happened. The place I was delivering food for closed down. Now I need a side hustle because I'm still not touching my money that I make every week. That's going up. That's going towards the future. Mm-hmm. So I started painting on the side, talking to friends, talking to realtors, and hey, if you need a turnover unit, if you're ready to spruce up a room, give me a call. I'm making ads on Facebook. I'm going on Craigslist. I'm putting out ads there. So now the painting on the side starts to pick up more. I'm getting busier doing that. My weekends are booked out. My weekdays are booked out. I'm hiring guys to go and do this work for me while I'm still being loyal to my old boss. Mm-hmm. So, because I had friends that work for me now still to this day that have painting experience, and I brought them on board. So I put in my 2 weeks, ended up being 3 weeks because he's like, I'm just stuck on this project. You stick it out with me. And we're still cool to this day. I actually talked to him earlier. That I outgrew him kind of.
Right.
So yeah, he's like, I appreciate, staying here for a year, giving me the extra week, and we parted ways, and I went all in on a painting company.
Now, flip side, this, as you now the employer, the owner of the business, what is your thoughts and feelings about hiring people with a criminal past?
I am not. Obviously, I'm going to hire someone. I'm more of like a character and who you are today type of person.
Right.
Obviously, like I can't judge you on your past. Like how could I judge somebody on their past and have people believe in change if I can't accept somebody for who they are today and not what they did? Right. So yeah, I hire guys that all walks of life, criminal records, different nationalities, different upbringings. But I'm a heavily believe in second chances. So I have people that work here, and I've seen them turn their life around since they started working for me because I know what some of these guys need. They just need a little bit of guidance. They just need a little bit of structure in their life. They just need a little support. They just need a little bit of hope. They just need a little, like, someone to believe in them. Right. So I kind of recommend having somebody that, because that's all, when usually, in my belief, when people are in the street life or they commit crimes, stuff like that, it's really like lack of guidance and not knowing better. Because if you knew better, you do better.
Yeah.
So they're not educated on, and they don't believe that there's possibilities of having a successful life unless they live this life of crime and doing shit illegal. But once you enlighten them on, we're talking about credit, we're talking about proof of income, we're talking about buying houses, we're talking about mortgages, loans, credit cards, financing, spending time with your family. We're talking about positive shit. Mm-hmm. And if they're not used to that, but now they have an opportunity to be exposed to it, that might light the light bulb off in their head to be like, there is a better life out there than I was living.
Right.
They got the hustle in them mostly, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, that part I don't think you ever lose. You just have to figure out how to direct it to, something positive that's going to benefit you. Um,
Absolutely.
how many times have you shared your story on a podcast platform?
This is my second time.
Okay, so
Just once with Ian, yeah.
I had this like internal battle with me. Like while my stuff was going on, I started my own podcast, but I never talked about my situation.
Yeah.
So for until it was resolved, like 2.5 years into it, nobody had a clue that I was going through it. So when it come out, everybody was like, "Oh shit, you were dealing with this the whole time." Well, I had to make a decision. Like, do I just, be grateful that the situation resolved itself and move on and don't talk about it? Or do I just own it and use it to try to spin something positive? Because when you put the story out there, a lot of people that maybe didn't know before are going to find out. So then you have to deal with how are people that maybe didn't know that part of your life, how are they going to treat you now? Are they going to judge you? Have you run into any sort of thing like that, or did you ask
I
yourself those questions?
I love that you're bringing this up because I'm actually going to start a podcast of my own.
Really?
Me and a buddy that I was locked up with, did like the time with me kind of. We were just got transported to the same jails at the same time. So he got released 3 months before me.
Okay.
The podcast is Streets to Success. Um, but I didn't want to put the story out there, not because of me being scared of anything for me, but it was more so for I have at the time, like I started about thinking about putting my story out there, 10 employees that are working for me. So we're in people's houses. If they see like this owner is a criminal, I don't want to hire his company to work in our house because they're judging me, which
Right.
is I can't get mad at them for it, right? So I didn't want to risk the business and the employees suffering the consequences because of my past decisions.
Mhm.
But, you know, I feel like if I'm open and upfront about it, and if they want to do their research, they can do it. It's better that if I'm putting it out there rather than I'm trying to hide something.
Right.
And it's funny because I had a lady, um, I had one of my guys, my manager, go and pick up a deposit check from this lady. This was literally last week. I had my guy go pick up a deposit check from this lady, and she said, "Hey, where's Frank at?" He's like, "Yeah, Frank's doing estimates and stuff. He sent me to come." She's like, "You're John Kaiser." He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, tell Frank I love his story. I looked him up on Google and YouTube, and I seen his podcast, and it's very inspiring. That's the reason I hired him." So I was like, "Wow." She's like, his professionalism, his detailed quote, his knowledge, just everything that his whole process of how he did everything. It was so smooth and seamless, and it's very inspiring to see his story, and also knowing that you guys have all of your information on social media, on Google, all your reviews, all your portfolio of work. She's like, that was like the icing on the cake.
That
I thought that would hinder it, and it might hinder, us getting jobs for some customers, but I'm
right.
doing I'm running every day looking at jobs, and I'm myself. I show up as myself. I know what my team's capable of doing. I know we do the right thing. I know we won't leave that project until the customer's happy. I know we don't ask for a final payment until the job is done. If we break something, we fix it. If something isn't right, we make it right. We're not perfect, but I don't want people to see who I was before, because if I was who I was before and I'm in this position now, well, I'm telling you, I got a 7-figure company. You know what I mean? I got here for a reason. I got multiple
Right.
properties now. Like I got in this position for a reason, not for being a scumbag either. So,
Right.
and I say that humbly.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think is great about having, individuals with stories like yourself is it lets people know that there is a way that you can come back from, a point where you are in prison and you think like, this is the end and everything's going to be, shit when you get out. I'm not going to say it's easy. I mean, you just described how you worked 2 jobs, scraped by, you saved, that wasn't, I'm sure, an easy time, but you used that, had a game plan and you fulfilled it, succeeded it, and you grew what was a side hustle into a business. And I think
Yeah,
that needs to be the message that people get from this. That doesn't, obviously your story is important, but that needs to be the focus, not necessarily, what you did to get here. And I think that's important. The journey is important, but it's all about where it leads to. And that's to me what I like to highlight.
So I had a friend, he's like a mentor to me. I talk to him like once a month, and I'm like eager to get to the next destination.
Mm.
I want to get to the next level. I always want to get better, get to the next level. And I'm telling him about where I want to go and what I want to do, and I'm like impatient and eager to get there. And he said, Frank, I know you're going to get there. And do you know how I know you're going to get there? He said, because you already overcame the odds. He said, to get to from how deep in the hole you were to where you are now, it's way further of a journey from where you are now to where you're trying to go.
Right.
He said, you had less than a 1% chance to get to where you're at right now. How many people come out and do what you did in the amount of time that you did it? He said, now you're where you're at now. It might seem so far away, but you're closer than you think.
Mm-hmm. What's your advice to people that are coming out of prison that are looking to do what you did? Obviously, they might have a different mindset of what they want to do, but anybody can take that dream, whether it is masonry or welding or drywall or whatever, and get to the point to where they do it on the side. I know a lot of people that do that. They do their same job on the weekends, freelance work.
Yeah.
What is your advice to people that are trying to do that?
So if I had to give some advice on creating the person you want to be, first and foremost, so you have to visualize who this person is, even though you don't know him yet. You got to try to see it as clear as day, and then do whatever is required to get there. So if that means working extra hours, if that means studying a little bit more, if that means saving money, you have to believe that it's possible, and then you must do everything that is necessary, even when it looks like it isn't going to happen. So having faith is huge, and hard work is huge. After the faith and hard work, and then you start building up your confidence and you start knocking down the little targets that are taking you closer to your goals, it's over from there, because then it's like you build the momentum up behind you and it's like, what can I achieve? But I would start just with setting small goals for yourself, starting that side hustle and stick it out, even when you lose money sometimes, even when it feels like you're not making progress. Just stick with it and then believe and have faith that it's going to turn into what you want it to turn into. Because if you don't believe in it, you don't have faith, you're not going to move and act in conviction. So you're not going to go at it 100% because you already don't really all the way believe it.
Mm-hmm. No,
That would just be my advice.
Yeah. So you got the paint company. You mentioned you're possibly going to be starting a podcast here real soon. What else have you got going on? I mean, it sounds like you're a guy that likes to put stuff in the action. Have you got anything else that's popping? Anything else in the works?
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on. The painting company's grown. It turned into a renovation company now. So we have a whole renovation division. We're doing kitchens, we're doing bathrooms, we're doing basements. We're still doing painting a lot. We got like 15 to 20 guys in total in the whole umbrella company of enhanced property appearance. I also have 2 houses right now. 2 properties. One's a duplex. The other one's a single family. They're both getting fixed and flipped. I make closing on the second one next week. The other one's already demoed and under construction now. I want to get into some buy and hold with properties. And then I got the podcast going on too. That should be starting in the beginning of March. March will be my 10 years since I've been locked up. So, my journey started 10 years ago, I believe. And that's when we're going to drop the podcast.
So what is what's going to be a theme?
So the theme for the podcast, sorry. The theme for the podcast is going to be, the name is Streets to Success. So we're going to talk about, some people got the road to success. Some people got the path to success. Some people take the streets to success. So a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of errors, a lot of crime, a lot of anger, frustration, and the stuff that come with the streets, but that are still on the path to success. They're still on a journey to success. We're going to talk about people that are already successful. We're going to talk to people that are up and coming. We're going to talk to people that are in the streets. So it's going to be kind of versatile in that sense, because I have a friend, he's like, he's actually a surgeon, and he also has a bounce house business and a screen printing business too. And a 3D print stuff. So he's doing a lot. And I was like, I want to get you on a podcast. He's like, I haven't really ever been in the streets. I said, no, but your mindset is intriguing and your hustle is it's going to get appreciated by people because I, people think that it's hard to come from nothing and have the cards stacked against you and be successful. But I feel like it may be easier because you got that hunger and you know what it feels like to have nothing in comparison to somebody who already has life kind of handed to them.
Right.
And they're just, they're in the middle. They're not like really poor or really in the hole, and they're not like super successful, but they're in the middle. It's hard to get out of that even when there ain't no problem. It's like I don't have a problem. I don't need to get out of here.
Yeah, those people that kinda get through it, like you said, they come with other they got that dog in them, is what I like to say,
Mhm.
they have that fight mentality, and that's something that you can't reproduce if you had never been in the situation where you had to become a dog to get
Right.
out of it. So it's definitely you're gonna come with a lot more appreciation too for what you get. Um,
Yeah.
and I've known people throughout my life that's had things handed to them, and you can just tell that appreciation is not there as opposed to people that have, busted their ass and built things from the ground up. So it's definitely a different mindset when you had to work for it like
Yep.
that. Okay, so are you on like any sort of social medias that we can plug so anybody can check you out?
Yeah. So, YouTube, quite frankly, Instagram, quite underscore Frank underscore Lee, the Streets of Success on both of them platforms as well. TikTok, quite frankly, as well. And then hopefully Spotify and Apple, iTunes, and all that stuff in the future. Next month.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you ever need any questions about anything, man, hit me up. I don't know everything about everything, but I know a little bit about a little bit. And
Yeah.
we got a lot of people with a lot of, stories similar to yours. And that's the cool thing about this. I spun a negative thing that happened to me into a podcast that I never thought would, encompass me interviewing people. Like this whole thing first started, I was just going to talk about things that I found interesting. And really, it was just a way to, not focus on my case and everything that was going on. It was a distraction, a coping
Yeah.
mechanism, I guess, if you will.
Right.
And then it kind of blossomed and bloomed me doing interviews, and it's just been so cool to be
You
able to
do
hear
this full time?
stories. No, I have a full-time job. I
Yeah.
do this part-time. And there's not a ton of money in it. Obviously when you get to levels, like what Ian's at and Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
money to be made, but it's very hard to start up a podcast with no name recognition.
Right.
Nobody knew who I was, and I mean, I'm not even saying they do now, but I didn't. Now if a former
No
mob,
following.
yeah, if a former mobster or something like that gets out of jail, they immediately start a podcast. If a sports star starts a podcast because they're known, they're going to get a huge following right off the jump. So
Yeah.
having to work and start from ground zero, it's hard. There's a lot of times that I thought about just, you know, throwing in the towel, but I enjoy it. I actually do enjoy it. So that's why I've kept at it. And now it's getting to where there's a daily increase in the subscribers.
Yeah.
So it's all starting to, I feel like now kind of pay off. A lot of good connections made with good people. Then you start, I guess you would call it, what's the word? Networking, with other people going on their podcast, then that's how you get followers to yours.
Yeah.
That was big when I started telling my story. It trickled down, and I would get followers from that. So I would say the same advice that you're giving other people. Just if you're going to do this, and I'm not saying you're trying to make this your only stream of income. Obviously, you would have to be a hell of successful to replace the 7-figure deal that you got going now with a painting company. But it's it is something that you do have to keep at it and going. And I think,
Consistency.
yeah, consistency.
Consistency.
That's the key. A lot of people started the podcast during the pandemic because they were bored. And once they
Yeah.
realized that it actually,
Requires
depending,
work.
yeah, how far and deep you want to go with it, it's a work. It's basically a part-time job. And so that is the key to is consistency. So if you ever need any guests or, have any questions, man, feel free to, shoot me a DM. I'll do whatever I can to help you. And I want to thank you for coming on this podcast and sharing your story. And hopefully it helps out somebody in a similar situation.
Yeah, and if anyone listening and they have any questions, feel free to shoot me DMs. I'm answering questions left and right. I'm here to motivate and add value any way I can. I'm here to show possibilities. I'm here to inspire other people. That's why I'm telling my story. I'm not telling it for any recognition. I just wanted to show people possibilities, and because I didn't think it was possible at some point in my life to be where I'm at today. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. Trust me. I didn't. No one handed me anything. Um, I wouldn't be here today without my hustle and without my mindset shifting and believing in myself.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for today's episode. Please go check out Frank on all of his social medias. We'll put links to those in the bottom of our show notes. So go check him out, give him a follow. Be sure to follow on his podcast starting here real soon. And I think that'll do it. Frank, again, we
Thanks,
appreciate
Brandon.
you
Have
coming
a
by.
good one.
All right, buddy.